The answer to the question, who was the greatest military commander in the history of the United States, is really obvious: George Washington. What's much less obvious is why. Why is he regarded as the greatest military commander in the history of the United States? Look, he didn't know very much about military science or military command. He had limited experience in the French and Indian War. He had no formal training or formal education in the art or the science of command. And when you take a look at his record, I rate it as no better than 50-50. He's batting 500 in the Revolutionary War. You know, you take Boston, Trenton, those are clear wins. But when you look at something like the Battle of Long Island, White Plains, they were clearly losses. And his most significant win, Yorktown, was really due to the French, to General Rochambeau and the French army, and along with especially the French fleet. So he's still, notwithstanding all of that, regarded as the greatest military commander in the United States. The reasons, I think, are just a handful. One was he had a very, very clear strategic sense. He understood that he could not go toe-to-toe with the British Army and have any chance of succeeding. He tried it once, and the one time he tried it, the Battle of Long Island, he nearly ended the revolution right there. You figure he was outnumbered in that battle 42,000 to 20,000. And when you read the accounts of the battle, you realize how inept Washington was as a general in that battle. He was lucky to have escaped, but then he got beat again at White Plains. What George Washington realized is he's not able to go toe-to-toe with the British Army, but he knows that the British Army has to destroy the Continental Army. They can't conceivably leave a standing army in the field prowling around among these 13 colonies, ready to snuff out any kind of British government that gets installed in any of the colonies. So the problem for the Brits is they've got to win. They've got to destroy the Continental Army. Washington's problem is different. He just has to make sure he doesn't lose. So understanding that, having learned his lesson at the Battle of Long Island, the rest of the war, he is simply exploiting whatever opportunities the British are giving him, namely anything where he's got a tactical advantage. He's always making sure he's got an exit strategy. So that strategic sense informed everything that he did. Now, the second characteristic that he had was he knew how to surround himself with very good men. I mean, you take a look, people like Nathaniel Greene, Henry Knox, Baron von Steuben, the Marquis de Lafayette, excellent men. And George Washington knew how to take advice. He knew how to consider it. In fact, they wrote that he spent a lot of time pondering the stuff that was presented to him. So having surrounded himself with very able lieutenants really enhanced what his personal shortcomings otherwise would have been. And finally, the other thing was he had a personal aura, a charisma, an ability to get people to follow him and to stay with him. Let's face it, the Revolutionary War was the longest war we had fought until Vietnam came along. It lasted 8.5 years. And over 8.5 years, he had to keep this miserable, ragtag, unpaid, unequipped army together and keep them in the field. because he knew that was the fundamental problem for the Brits. They had to destroy them. But he managed to keep them in the field. He managed to get them trained. He managed to get his officers trained. And he did it through his presence. The fact that he was tall, 6 feet 1 inches tall, big guy for the 18th century. He dressed the part. He made it a point to dress the part. And also he had this, what you read about is this kind of Olympic silence where he could express disdain, contempt, and whatnot just with a glance. Now, you look at those things, all those things contributed to him being regarded as the #1 commander in our history. But the bottom line, the thing that makes him stand head and shoulders above commanders like Napoleon, like Robert E. Lee, the thing that does it is very simple. He won. They didn't.